I have always believed that routine is the only honest thing left in old age. Every morning at 6:10, I wake up without an alarm. My body does it on its own now, like a clock that refuses to break out of stubbornness rather than precision. I sit on the edge of my bed for exactly 30 seconds, letting my knees remember how to hold me. Then I shuffle to the kitchen, turn on the same yellow lamp above the sink, and start the kettle. 2 teaspoons of ground coffee. Not 1.5, not 2.5. Exactly 2. Eleanor used to say, I measured life like an engineer. She was right. 41 years in municipal water systems does that to a man. Numbers behave. People don't. The house is quiet now. Too quiet, if I'm being honest. The refrigerator hums like it's trying to keep me company. The floorboards creak in familiar places. The clock above the microwave ticks louder than it should. I keep everything the same. Same mug, blue, chipped on the rim. Same breakfast, toast, butter, 1 egg. Same chair by the window. It gives the illusion that something is still under control. That illusion lasted until March 3rd, 2024. I remember the date because it was the first time my son Daniel used the word temporary. He arrived at 9:17 in the morning, late enough to feel deliberate, early enough to catch me before my walk. I saw his car pull into the driveway. Black SUV new. Too new for someone who had called me 3 days earlier saying things were tight. I didn't question it then. I opened the door before he knocked. Dad, he said, stepping inside without waiting, bringing in a gust of cold air and expensive cologne. We need to talk. That phrase never brings anything good. I poured him coffee. He didn't drink it, just held the cup like a prop. It's just temporary, he said within the first 2 minutes. A short-term situation. 3 months, maybe 4. I leaned back in my chair. What is? He exhaled sharply, like a man rehearsing a line. Cash flow. The business hit a delay. A client backed out. $180,000 contract. It's just timing. Timing. Another soft word. How much? I asked. 15, he said quickly. 2, quickly. 15,000. Just to cover payroll and keep things moving. I remember noticing his watch then. Silver, heavy, not cheap. I remember thinking, you're asking me for money wearing something worth more than my monthly pension. But I said nothing. Because he's my son. Because I remember him at 8 years old, standing in the kitchen with flour on his cheeks, trying to bake a cake for his mother. Because I buried Eleanor alone. And because silence at my age often feels easier than conflict. I can transfer it today, I said. His shoulders dropped. Relief, immediate and unhidden. That was my first mistake. Relief that fast is never about survival. It's about expectation. Thank you, Dad. Seriously, I'll pay it back within 90 days. Maximum. 90 days. I wrote it down later. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I've always trusted paper more than memory. March 3rd, $15,000. Transfer completed at 11:42 a.m. He left 20 minutes later. Didn't finish his coffee. The house felt colder after he was gone. Still, I told myself it was nothing. Families help each other. That's what Eleanor would have said. That's what I had always believed. 3 weeks passed. Routine returned. Kettle, coffee, silence. Then, on March 26th, my phone rang at 8:03 p.m. Dad, Daniel said, voice tighter this time. I hate to ask, but there's another gap. Just until the first payment clears. How much? A pause. Longer than before. 20. I closed my eyes. On the table in front of me was my notebook, the one with careful handwriting and straight lines. March 3rd, $15,000. I picked up my pen. How temporary is temporary, Daniel? Just a few more weeks, he said quickly. I promise this is the last time. I added a new line. March 26th, $20,000. All right, I said. And just like that, I crossed a line I didn't yet understand. Because by the time I hung up the phone, I had already given him $35,000. And the word temporary had begun to sound permanent. Stories like this happen more often than we think. By the way, where are you watching from? Drop your city or state below. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel. If you want to understand when help turns into obligation, don't look at the first request. Look at the third. By April, my bank app had started recognizing Daniel's account number faster than I did. It would suggest his name before I finished typing the first 3 letters. A small detail. Efficient. Quietly humiliating. April 2nd, $8,500. Supplier delay. April 14th, $6,000. Short-term lease issue. He stopped explaining things fully. Just fragments. Words dropped like loose screws. Invoice delay, client, bridge, temporary. Always temporary. I wrote everything down. My notebook sat open on the kitchen table now, next to the salt shaker and the old radio I never turned on anymore. The columns were clean. Dates. Amounts. Notes. April 2nd, $8,500. April 14th, $6,000. Total. $49,500. Numbers behave. That was always my belief. But these numbers were beginning to feel slippery. Daniel started visiting more often. Not long visits. Never more than 40 minutes. Always in a hurry. Always on his phone. He would pace the kitchen, speaking in half sentences. Yeah, we'll cover that by Friday. No, it's handled. I said it handled. Handled by whom, I wondered. One afternoon I noticed something new. He had stopped calling me Dad mid-conversation. It became, I'll ask him, or he'll take care of it. As if I were a department, a resource, a line item. On April 28th, he brought Melissa with him, his wife. That more than anything made me uneasy. Melissa does not visit without purpose. She walked into my house like she was inspecting it. Her eyes moved quickly. Walls, furniture. The old cabinets Eleanor had insisted on keeping even when we could afford better. It's a lovely place, she said, smiling thinly. Very stable. Stable. Another word that sounds kind until you realize it means unchanging. Replaceable. We sat at the table. I made tea this time. She didn't drink hers either. Daniel told me you've been helping us, she began, folding her hands neatly. We really appreciate. I nodded. Family helps family. Yes, she said. Exactly. And that's why we think it's time to organize things properly. That word again. Properly. Daniel slid a folder across the table. Manila. Cheap. Inside, papers. It's just a formality, he said quickly. Nothing changes. This just gives us flexibility with the bank. Short-term restructuring. I didn't open it immediately. I looked at him instead. When you say nothing changes, I said, that usually means something already has. He laughed. Too loud. Melissa didn't. It's standard, Dad, he insisted. We're consolidating some liabilities. This just shows that part of the funds came from you as a structured loan instead of informal transfers. It actually protects you. Protects me. I opened the folder. Dense text. Legal language. Words stacked on top of each other, like bricks meant to keep something hidden. I caught phrases. Secured interest. Collateral. Residential property. My house. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic, not yet. Just wait. Why is my house mentioned here? I asked. Melissa leaned forward slightly, her voice calm, almost soothing. It's just a technicality. The bank needs assurance. It's temporary, like everything else. Once the business stabilizes, it's released automatically. Automatically. Daniel nodded. 3 months, Dad, for at most. 90 days had already become 4 months. I closed the folder. You've borrowed nearly $50,000 from me, I said quietly. Now you want paperwork that involves my house. It's not like that, he snapped, irritation finally breaking through. Why are you making this complicated? I'm trying to fix things. Fix things. I looked at my notebook, at the neat lines, at the growing total, $49,500. Then I looked at my son, and for the first time, I noticed something I had been avoiding. Not desperation, expectation. I signed the papers on May 1st, 2024, at 10:16 in the morning. The pen didn't shake. That's the part one remember most clearly. Not fear, not doubt, just a quiet, mechanical motion. Like tightening a bolt you don't realize is holding the wrong structure together. By the time I finished, the total had crossed $50,000. And my house, my last constant, my last certainty, was no longer entirely mine. That realization didn't hit me immediately. It waited, patient, like a debt coming due. There's a particular kind of silence that comes after you sign something you don't fully understand. It doesn't arrive immediately. At first, everything feels the same. The kettle still whistles. The toast still burns if you forget it. The clock still ticks. But underneath, something shifts. By mid-May, I stopped sleeping through the night. Not dramatically. No nightmares. No panic. Just small awakenings at 2:13, 3:47, 4:22. I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations word by word. It's just a formality. Nothing changes. Temporary. Words started to lose their shape. On May 18th, I went to the bank in person. I hadn't done that in years. I prefer machines. They don't smile at you while hiding things. The branch on Elm Street still smelled the same. Cleaning solution and old carpet. A young man with a name tag that said Victor greeted me like I was already a problem. How can I help you today, sir? I'd like a full statement, I said. All outgoing transfers since March 1st. He typed quickly. Quickly. Everything is available in your app, he said. I'd like it printed. A pause, then a polite smile. Of course. I sat down while the printer hummed. There's something about paper. It forces reality to stay still long enough for you to look at it. When he handed me the stack, it was thicker than I expected. I didn't react there. I nodded, thanked him, and walked out. Only when I got home did I spread the pages across the kitchen table. Line by line. March, April, May. Transfers I remembered, and some I didn't. May 6th, $4,200. May 9th, $3,800. May 12th, $5,000. I stared at the dates. I had no memory of those. I opened my notebook. My handwriting was consistent, careful, but those entries weren't there. I checked again. Slowly this time. Nothing. A strange, cold clarity settled in. Either I had started forgetting things, or someone else had started remembering for me. At 11:26 a.m., I called Daniel. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Dad, I'm in the middle of something. I have transfers here I don't recognize. Silence. Brief but noticeable. What do you mean? May 6th, May 9th, May 12th. Over $13,000. A sigh. Irritation, not concern. Oh, that. Yeah, I meant to tell you. We set up automated pulls to simplify things. It's part of the restructuring. Automated? I repeated. Yeah, it's easier this way. Less back and forth. You're withdrawing money from my account without telling me. It's not without telling you, he snapped. We discussed ongoing support. We discussed requests, I said, not access. Another pause. Then Melissa's voice in the background. Faint, but sharp. Just tell him it's temporary. Daniel exhaled. Dad, please don't make this a problem. This is exactly why we need a structure. Everything is documented now. It's under control. Under control. I looked at the papers still sitting on my table, the ones I had signed. Does that document give you access to my accounts? I asked. It gives the company security, he said carefully, and flexibility. That's not what I asked. His tone hardened. Look, if you don't trust me, just say it. There it was, the pivot, not what happened, but how I feel about it. I trusted you enough to sign my house into your problem, I said quietly. Don't confuse that with blindness. He didn't respond immediately. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. You're overreacting. The call ended 2 minutes later. I sat there for a long time, staring at the numbers. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened Eleanor's old desk drawer. Inside, everything was exactly as she left it. Neatly arranged, labeled, untouched. She believed in order the way some people believe in prayer. At the back, under a stack of old insurance documents, was a small digital recorder. Someone bought in 2016, back when she thought someone had been overcharging us for utilities. She liked proof. I held it in my hand, feeling its light weight. And I looked back at the bank statements, at the missing entries, at the word automated. That was the moment the last illusion broke. This wasn't help anymore. This wasn't even manipulation. This was control. At 1:40 p.m. on May 18th, 2024, I pressed the power button on that recorder. Not because I was afraid, but because, for the first time in 11 months, I realized I might need evidence against my own son. The notice arrived on a Tuesday, June 11th, 2024.2:18 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was slicing bread when the doorbell rang, and I glanced at the microwave clock out of habit. 2:18. The kind of detail that sticks when something ordinary turns irreversible. The man at the door wore a gray suit that had seen too many summers. Not cheap, not expensive, just official. He didn't smile. Mr. Harold Bennett? I am. He handed me an envelope. Thick. Legal. You've been served. No explanation. No hesitation. He turned and walked back down the driveway before I could ask anything. I stood there for a moment. The envelope in my hand, the front door still open. Warm air drifted in. Somewhere a lawnmower hummed. Life continued, politely ignoring the fact that mine had just shifted again. I closed the door, set the envelope on the kitchen table, finished slicing the bread. Routine first. Always. Only then did I sit down and open it. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. Property. 148 Willow Creek Drive. My address. I read it once, then again slower. Words arranged like a trap you only recognize after stepping into it. Default on secured obligations. Failure to meet terms. Collateral enforcement authorized. My house had become collateral, not metaphorically, legally. I turned the page. There it was, a signature. Mine. Dated May 1st, 2024.10:16 a.m. Neat. Controlled. Familiar. I leaned back in my chair. For a long time, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No panic. Just confirmation. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring twice before answering. Dad, I was going to call you. I've been served, I said. Silence. Then carefully. Okay, don't panic. This is just procedural. Procedural. You're foreclosing on my house, I said. It's not like that, he replied quickly. It's a pressure move from the bank. We're negotiating. This is temporary. The word again. I looked at the papers spread across my table. At my name. At the legal language that didn't care about family. How much? I asked. What? How much is the total obligation now? A pause. Longer this time. 92,000. I did the math automatically. With fees, interest, it was already past 95. Daniel, I said slowly, you've taken $95,000 from me and used my house to secure it. It wasn't like that in the beginning, he snapped. Things changed. They always do, I said. His voice rose, frustration bleeding through. You think I wanted this? You think I planned it? I'm trying to save everything here. My business, my family. And what am I? I interrupted. Silence. That was answer enough. I'll fix it, he said finally, quieter now. Just give me time. How much time? A few weeks. I almost laughed. Instead, I looked at the small black recorder sitting beside my notebook. The red light was steady, quiet, honest. Daniel, I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. The house is scheduled for legal review in 18 days. How do you? I read what I signed, I said. Eventually. Another silence. This one heavier. We just need to stall them, he said. If you cooperate. If I cooperate, I repeated. I lose everything slowly instead of quickly. That's not fair. No, I said. It's accurate. We didn't raise our voices after that. There was no shouting. No dramatic collapse. Just two people, standing on opposite sides of something that used to be called family. Dad, he started. I waited. But whatever he was going to say, apology, excuse, calculation, never came. The line went dead. I sat there for a while after the call ended. Then I stood up, walked to the sink, and washed my hands. Breadcrumbs, butter, small, ordinary things. At 3:32 p.m., I made another call. Margaret, I said when she answered, I need a lawyer. A pause. Then very carefully, what kind of lawyer? I looked at the foreclosure notice, at my signature, at the recorder. The kind, I said, that deals with betrayal written in legal language. That evening, for the first time in 11 months, I did not follow my routine. I didn't write in the notebook. I didn't make tea. I sat in the dark, listening to the quiet hum of the house that was no longer mine, and began planning how to take it back. There is a difference between reacting and preparing. For 11 months, I had been reacting. On June 12, 2024, at exactly 9:05 a.m., I stopped. Margaret's office was colder than necessary. Accountants like control, and temperature is one of the few things still obedient. She sat across from me, glasses low on her nose, flipping through the copies I had brought, bank statements, transfer logs, the signed agreement, and the recordings. I had labeled them neatly. Dates, times, short descriptions. May 18th, automated withdrawals. June 11th, for a closure call. She didn't speak while she listened. That's something I've always respected in professionals. The ability to let silence do the work. Finally, she looked up. "This isn't just a family issue," she said. "This is fraud." The word landed quietly. "No, drunk. Just wait." "I signed the documents," I replied. "Yes," she nodded. "But intent matters. Representation matters. If they misled you about the nature of those documents, if access to your accounts was established without clear consent, this becomes something else entirely." "Something else?" I repeated. "Something prosecutable." At 9:47 a.m., she made a call. "David, I'm sending someone over. Urgent. Financial exploitation. Potential coercion. Real estate exposure." She paused, listening. "Yes. Today. That's how I met David Klein. He was younger than I expected. Mid-40s, maybe. No nonsense in his eyes. No wasted movement. He read fast. Listened faster. At one point, he stopped, tapped the document I had signed. "Did you understand this clause when you signed it?" he asked. "No." "Did your son explain that this effectively allowed secured claims against your property?" "No." "Did he inform you about automated access to your accounts?" "No." David leaned back. "Good," he said. "Good. A strange word, given the circumstances. We're not dealing with a misunderstanding," he continued. "We're dealing with a pattern." Classic. Classic. My life, reduced to a recognizable scheme. "What happens now?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Now we stop them." June 18th, 2024. The first hearing. I wore the same gray suit I had bought for Eleanor's funeral. It still fit. Age takes many things, but routine preserves a few. Daniel was already there when I arrived. So was Melissa. She looked different in a courtroom. Less polished, more alert, like someone who finally understands that consequences are not theoretical. Daniel avoided my eyes at first, then eventually didn't. "Dad," he said, stepping closer. "You didn't have to do this." I looked at him. "I didn't," I agreed. "You did." Melissa stepped in. "This is being blown out of proportion," she said, her voice controlled. "We had an agreement. Everything was documented." "Yes," I said. "It was." That seemed to unsettle her more than denial would have. David placed a folder on the table, thicker than the one Daniel had given me. "Your Honor," he said when the proceedings began, "we are presenting evidence of systematic financial exploitation, misrepresentation, and unauthorized account access." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The recordings played. Clear. Undeniable. Daniel's voice. "We set up automated polls." Melissa's. "Just tell it's temporary." There's something about hearing your own words in a courtroom. They lose their flexibility, their excuses. They become fixed. Daniel shifted in his seat. Melissa stopped writing. For the first time since March, I saw it. Not confidence, not control, fear. By the time the hearing ended, 3 things had happened. The foreclosure process was suspended. All further access to my accounts was frozen. And an investigation had officially begun. Outside the courthouse, Daniel tried to speak to me again. "Dad, please, this isn't what it looks like." I stopped walking, turned to him. For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be. The flower on his cheeks, the small hands. Then it was gone. "It looks exactly like what it is," I said. Melissa didn't speak this time. Neither did he. I walked past them, down the wide concrete steps, into the afternoon light. For 11 months, they had been writing the story. Quietly, carefully, one transaction at a time. They thought I wasn't paying attention. They were wrong, because the truth about temporary is simple. It only works if no one ever decides to make it permanent. People expect revenge to feel loud. It doesn't. It feels orderly. By July 9, 2024, everything had slowed down to a pace I understood. Documents moved through channels. Calls were scheduled. Deadlines were written, not implied. No more temporary. Only dates. The investigation uncovered more than I had expected, and less than I had hoped. Daniel's business wasn't collapsing. It already collapsed. Back in February, the $180,000 delayed contract. Fiction. The cash flow issue, already a deficit. By the time he came to me on March 3rd, he wasn't saving anything. He was covering a hole with me. Melissa had known. That detail came out in the second review. Emails, internal messages. timelines that didn't quite align with their version of events. If we secure his house, we can stabilize for at least 6 months. Dated March 1st, 2 days before he asked me for the first $15,000. I read that line twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to feel it properly. July 22nd, 2024. Final ruling. The courtroom was quieter this time. Less performance, more conclusion. The judge spoke in measured tones, the kind that don't invite interruption. Based on the evidence presented, including recorded statements, financial documentation, and misrepresentation of contractual terms. Pause. The court finds sufficient grounds to invalidate the secured claim against the property. Invalidate. One word. 11 months undone. I didn't react immediately. I've learned not to trust first reactions. Furthermore, the judge continued, the unauthorized access and transfer of funds will be subject to restitution proceedings. Restitution. Another word that behaves better on paper than in life. Daniel sat 2 rows ahead of me. He didn't turn around this time. Melissa stared straight ahead, her posture rigid, like something held together by habit rather than strength. No one looked at me when it was over. That, more than anything, felt appropriate. The house was mine again, legally, quietly, completely. The locks didn't change. The walls didn't shift. The refrigerator still hummed the same tired note. But something fundamental had returned. Not comfort, control. 2 weeks later, I received the first repayment notice. Structured, court-ordered, monthly, $2,100. It would take them years, longer than it took to take it, shorter than it felt. I didn't celebrate. I adjusted. New notebook, August 1st restitution, $2,100. Clean line. Clear, meaning no illusions. Daniel called once, August 14th, 6:32 p.m. I let it ring longer than usual. Then I answered, Dad. His voice sounded smaller, not weak, just reduced. I wanted to say, I didn't think it would go this far. That's the problem with lines, I said. You don't see them until you cross them. Silence. I was trying to fix things. No, I replied calmly. You were trying to delay consequences. Another silence. He didn't argue this time. I'm making the payments, he said finally. I know. I'll make it right. I looked around the kitchen. Same table. Same chair. Same chipped blue mug. No, I said. You'll make it balanced. He didn't understand that. That was fine. Not everything needs to be understood. That night, I followed my routine again. 6:10 wake up. 2 teaspoons of coffee. Same chair by the window. But something had changed. Not the house. Not the silence. Me. Because I had spent 11 months being reduced to a resource. A line item. An account. And in the end, I learned something simple. Very simple. If someone calls your life temporary, make sure you're not the one they plan to replace. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription.